Welcome to the Fantasy Football Hub YouTube channel. Today I'm joined by the big man Bakar, who is going to be building his free hit 34 draft live. Bakar, pleasure to have you back on. Massive week in FPL this one, and you're on the free hit. I can't wait to see who you've got in your team. There's, I feel, a lot of scope to go different this week and not just go with a template. But we're going to see, of course, what your plan is this week. How are you doing, and how has it been constructing this current draft?
Hello, Jack, and welcome to all the listeners and viewers. It's been a lot of fun actually because I was just actually looking at the fixtures, and you look at Liverpool versus Spurs, the likes of Wolves, Newcastle, Fulham, all playing promoted teams. So there are a lot of picks to choose from. There's a variety of picks that you can go, and if someone is chasing rank, this feels like an ideal sort of week to go different on the free hit because a lot of, let's say, the differential options are close to the optimal options that will be more popular on the free hit. So yeah, it is going to be a week where, variance will be big. Because the fixtures are so good, I expect the game week to be relatively high scoring as well. And because a lot of people will be on the free hit simply because of the fact that they doubled up on the doublers in 33 and now will be naturally forced to free hit in 34. So it makes for a fun week ahead, and I actually can't wait to get into it. And yeah, let's get rolling.
Okay, let's get into it. Interestingly, you're at about 90k right now. The game week hasn't finished when we're recording this. We're recording this Wednesday about 11 a.m. But yeah, 90k with one more fixture to come. Before we start building it, is that sort of territory to go differential? We can talk about this more later when we talk about differential picks. But what defines, or like at what point now does a manager say, okay, I want to improve my rank? As in, what is a good rank these days? It's hard to sort of
I
quantify
think
because of...
it's different. It's different for every manager. For example, I think that I'm at a respectable rank at this position, and I feel as if I play normally, I have a good shot of making the top 50K. So I don't think I'll go out of my way to get differentials personally. But if someone is chasing, let's say, a 25, 30 point lead over an engaged mini rival of yours in a mini league, then I think you can afford to go different. So for every person, the perspective is different. And they can then sort of tac tactically decide whether or not they need to play differently or play normally.
Okay, good stuff. All right, let's get into this. We're going to build this slightly differently than how we normally build drafts. We're going to go from the most locked in player in Bakar's draft, who hasn't changed, to the least. So the picks will probably get a little bit more fun / less nailed on as we go on. As always, guys, if you want to do the same thing with your team, your free hit team, your normal team, whatever, put it into Fantasy Football Hub, which is what we're using for this video, as we do with all videos, and you will get a game week rating, a team rating, and a predicted points at the end, as you can see on the top there. You can do that for free. Link down below, top line in the description, also in the pinned comment, and compare your current draft to Bakar's and see if you're doing a little bit better than him according to predicted points from Fantasy Football Hub. Let's go, mate. Who is the most nailed on player in your draft?
Yeah. So personally, when I was looking at this draft, I thought that the forwards and the defenders were more exciting to pick. I think the midfielders were there are plenty of options in midfield, but I don't exactly see the same upside when you're looking at midfielders this week. So I'll start with the forwards first. I think Isak picks himself. Uh, Great fixture at home to Ipswich. I don't think I'll captain him personally, but I just think a guy of his pedigree is really hard to leave out when he's playing at home against a promoted team. And I don't think I need to say anything further on him. Similarly, then I've gone with Cunha as my second forward. He's also playing Leicester. Wolves are playing at home to Leicester, and you must have noticed this season that whenever Cunha gets an attacking return, inevitably he ends up getting a share of the bonus as well. We've seen it happen time and time again. I haven't known Cunha at all this season, and I think one of the major reasons why I am behind in rank as compared to you is the fact that you've owned Ward and Cunha over the season, and I haven't owned either of them at any point. So I'm actually excited to own Cunha, given the fixture. Wolves are playing well. They've actually posted good underlying attacking data under their new manager. So I'm expecting them to score, let's say, 2 goals minimum. And if they do so, then there's a good chance that Cunha is involved. And if he is, then he should get get a sizable score.
Yeah, interesting. I've actually not owned Cunha, but I have owned Wood, who has been obviously fantastic for me. But I'm the same as you. I'm looking forward to owning him. You're right. A goal for him is just like a guaranteed 7 points because he's so good at football, which I think is why he's really good for baseline bonus. In terms of key passes, he's very creative. He's a very good dribbler, gets fouled a decent amount of times. So he will inevitably get top bonus if he gets a return. It's ridiculous how many bonus points he gets if you check in the fantasy app or whatever it is that you use. But Isak is one that potentially some people could say, well, there have been other Newcastle assets that have been doing better than him recently. Could you not go for Barnes, Murphy, and like a Trippier or a Livramento in defence?
I think Isak is easily the best Newcastle asset to have. I know that he hasn't been involved in as many goals that you'd expect recently. I think in the last 10 Newcastle goals, he's had uh, two involvements. One was a goal, one was an assist. So I can understand the point of view, but we have to sort of factor in that it's a very small sample that we're looking at when you're looking at the past 2 or 3 games, because over the course of the season, he's been by far and away the talisman of the team, and I see no reason of that changing.
Okay, so that's two forwards done then. Yeah, sound logic. I mean, I'm going to have Isak in my team. I'm just playing devil's advocate, of course. We'll come to Newcastle, the other Newcastle assets later. It feels like a good week to triple up. Who is the next most nailed player? I mean, there's one notable omission so far that you haven't said, the Egyptian king. Surely he's got to be in there.
Yeah, of course. I mean, he's going to be my captain this week as well, for sure. I was starting from the forwards, which is why, I'm going from forwards to midfield. And Salah's, the most named player in my team is going to be my captain. I just think the fixtures against Spurs is too good to pass up. We've just seen Spurs, concede to Nottingham Forest, and they've been all over the place defensively this season. So, yeah, I just think that's a gimme fixture for Salah. And when Salah's playing a team which is ranked 14th or 15th in the Premier League with poor underlying data, I see very little reason to go against.
Yep, completely agree. All right, who's next?
The next is Palmer, actually, and
Wow.
he has been out of form, but I don't think that there's a world where I sort of leave him out of my team. I'll give you my reasons. Firstly, I feel as if that there will be a lot of people in the field who look at his form and they, despite the good fixture that he has at home to Everton, they might choose to overlook him because he hasn't been the best of forms recently. And I feel as if this presents me with an opportunity to go different from the field while having a good premium asset with a good fixture on penalties. I just don't think there's any reason I should go against him. I know that the form hasn't been great, etc. But then again, his underlying data has not been bad. I would think that in most weeks, given the fixture, he'd probably do well at home to Everton, and I hope it's one of those weeks because I just feel as if it's a sound decision to pick him. I just hope that the outcome backs the thought process behind the decision.
I think that's the thing, and obviously you never know if that's going to happen or not. But yeah, hearing your logic here, and I'm going to be honest, as a Chelsea fan, Palmer hasn't really been in my draft yet. He is getting closer to it though because of logic like that. However, I don't know. It's just I'm gonna struggle to put him in. I really am. I think.
I exactly. I'm gonna come to this again because one of the things I mentioned earlier in the video was that forwards and defenders were more exciting to pick in terms of there are more options available. But when you come to midfield, I'm struggling to see a lot of options that I really, really like. And I think from the ones that are available, Palmer just stands out by default.
Yeah. That's fair enough. I'm just not sure if he's I don't know. Like, yeah, it's weird not having
Reliable.
a 10.6 million player in your free hit when he's got a home fixture against Everton. But it's just he hasn't
You don't
been
think he's
doing it for the
reliable?
last few months. And I know you're saying there aren't that many other options, but there are some options, and we'll come to the rest of your midfielders obviously in this video. Let's carry on and see who's next.
The next is Clivert. Again, a good fixture at home to Man United, and I do think that he's the pick of the Bournemouth guys as well. On penalties, he's back to full fitness. He played close to 90 minutes last week. Should be safe from minutes this week. And again, one of the few midfielders that I really, really like this week.
Okay.
Should be a
Yeah.
differential as well because you see he's actually being sort of net sold overall. A lot of people won't be buying him. So, the likes of Clivert, even Cunha. I mean, Cunha, barely anyone owns him outside the free hit at this point. So, if you get a plethora of differentials, and I do think Cunha is a differential, even Palmer to a certain extent will be a differential, to a certain extent, Clivert as well. This is exactly why I don't want to take on the obvious picks like, let's say, Isak, like you were mentioning earlier. I think I'm happy having Isak in place and then Isak and Salah, and then sort of maneuvering uh, the ranks by picking, let's say, nine relatively lowish owned players.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. You don't need to go differential when you've got players like Clivert, Palmer, Cunha in your team who have been fantastic at times this season, but now they're lesser owned. Even Palmer. Okay, so yeah, Clivert's one that I didn't actually realize that he was back to full fitness. But on penalties against United at home, that does look strong. Played the full game as you said against Palace last time
Exactly.
out. Very nice. Who's next?
Yeah, so you must have noticed that I've left out a forward, I've left out a midfielder, and I'm not sure about them. So we'll come to the defense now. I think I'll start with Eight Nouri. The fixture against Wolves is just so good that the fixture against Leicester is so good that you automatically feel like going with the Wolves defender. And I think Eight Nouri, we've seen time and again this season that he's, their best attacking defender. So he does come with a certain degree of upside as well. And Wolves have been given a 40% chance by the bookmakers to keep a clean sheet this week, which I feel is reasonable. And for the price that he comes at, for the fixture he has, with potential to deliver both ends of the field, I think he's a good package to have.
Yeah, 100% he'll be in my team for sure. Okay, next up. I've got to say the defense is really interesting because I think there are a few really, really strong options this week. It's just which of like a pool of 4 or 5 do you go for? Because there are a lot of them are strong, I think. So who's next?
The next is going to be a Newcastle defender.
Okay.
Now, I'm a bit hesitant to say which one, but I think I'll probably say Trippier. And I think it's safe to say that it's very likely that he makes my team. Again, great fixture at home to Ipswich, set pieces. Newcastle are by far and away actually the best team in terms of clean sheet odds this week. They've been given a 47% chance by the bookmakers. So I definitely want to have at least one of their defenders, if not two. In which case, I think Trippier makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. I went with Trippier on my wild card and I sort of semi regretted it compared to Livramento. But then Trippier did well in the last game week. I don't know. I just feel from open play, I look at Livramento and I think about Ipswich's sort of frailties down their flanks. And I think he could do well. Fabian Schär as well. I mean, he scored a couple of goals of late. Like that, nailing that Newcastle defender is going to be tough, and we'll talk about the other options in a bit. But yeah, I think you have to have one.
Yeah, I just want to add that Trippier had an open play assist as well in the previous game week.
He did, but it was if you the actual goal was
I
extremely
know.
fortunate goal, and that was not an
I
assist. He
agree.
passed it down the wing, and Murphy just scored from an
An assist
obscene
is an
angle.
assist.
It is,
but
it
I
is,
but
but
I
I'm not
hear
getting
you.
blinded by that. I mean, that does not count as an assist in my book in terms of predicting future points.
Better way of presenting my argument would be that because if it's a free hit and because if funds are an issue, exactly, I'm just assuming that money is not a factor.
Yeah, that's fair.
Then I think if you can pick any one of them, then because of historical pedigree, because of set pieces, you just simply default to Trippier, and he does well for bonus as well because he creates those chances from corners.
Yep, that's fair. Okay, who's next?
Interesting because I think I've actually run out of players who are locked in my team, but at this point, I would like to add that I think it's very likely that I go with double Newcastle defense. Now, that could be a combination
Whoa.
of Trippier and Livermento, or it could be a combination of Trippier and Pope. I just think that while I think that Harvey Barnes is a really explosive option, and so is Jacob Murphy. I think the minutes for Murphy are sort of sketchy that he could get subbed early for Gordon. I'm expecting Murphy and Barnes to start, but Gordon would come in for Murphy. And I do think that Barnes is a very strong option, but it's just that I look at the Newcastle defense and I think they're by far and away the best defense to get this week. While I look at midfielders and I don't think there's a huge difference between some of the midfield options and some of the Newcastle options, which is why I think I'd rather go with the double Newcastle defense as opposed to the double Newcastle attack.
Wow. I didn't expect you to say that. I mean, I'm sure that one of Barnes or Murphy will be in my team. I think that like double attack against Ipswich at home, that's surely too strong to pass up. I quite like some of the other defensive options as well. But interesting. Okay. So, are we going to put another Newcastle defender in?
I think you can put Livermento in for now,
Okay.
or Share. I'm not exactly sure whether Share will be fit, but the manager did say Jason Tindall mentioned that it was a precautionary thing with him, so he should be fine for the weekend. I think I'll go with Share and Trippier.
Okay. So that is 8 players done. 3 more to make
And
the
now
starting
the other
11.
three are they're sort of up in the air. And I want to discuss about the options I'm considering and what route I can take. because this is where it sort of gets tricky, and this is where I think that uh, the difference between most free hit teams. So I'll start from the forwards first because I start from the forwards. I'll come to the forwards. So my third forward is likely going to be one of Welbeck or Jimenez, Raul Jimenez, right? So this I think will come down to Muniz's fitness before the deadline. If he was to be declared fit, which I expect him to, then I don't think that Raul would be a realistic option over Welbeck because Welbeck is simply going to be stronger for minutes. With João Pedro suspended, Welbeck is going to be on penalties. So at this point in time, I feel as if I'm very likely to go with Welbeck over, let's say, Raul.
Okay.
If let's say Muniz was unavailable this weekend, then that might change, right? So that's why I didn't exactly include him in the nailed selections. I think the midfield selection is even more trickier because you know how much of a fan favorite I've been of Brian Mbeumo this season, and now to see him score, I don't know, a gazillion points last week against Brighton it naturally makes me, very tempted to pick him on the free hit. He's playing Forest away, which isn't the best of fixtures, which is why he's not nailed in my draft. And I think that he's a solid option, of course, for minutes. And because you're what you're getting with him, right? He's just the fish and chips pick, basically, the boring selection.
So boring,
But
but so good.
exactly, but so good, exactly. So he is, I know what I'm getting with him, but I think he could be a player which could be worth taking on potentially. I'm not sure
Yeah,
whether I
that's what I
will, but
think. That is what I think. I think you got to go for it. It's Forest at home. They're strong.
first, exactly, exactly. So I think he could be a player worth taking on. And I think the two options that I can, consider realistically in this position, um, I think Luis Diaz is a very strong alternative
Yeah,
if I don't go with Mbomo because
that's what I'm
doubling
doing
up on
for
the
sure.
Liverpool attack, I think that's a very strong sort of strategy, and that's something that I will very strongly consider picking someone like Luis Diaz over Mbomo because the fixture for Liverpool is so good, right?
Yeah.
And then the second alternative can be picking someone like a Murphy or Barnes, like mentioned earlier. But I don't think I will because this is exactly what I'm sort of trying to say. There's so many good options, so many options to pick from in midfield. That I don't think the difference between someone like a Luis Diaz and a Barnes is as big as, let's say, the difference between a Newcastle defender and, let's say, any other defender actually.
Okay.
So that's the reason for leaning towards double Newcastle defense. And I think the keeper slot is the only one which is left now. So I think as of now, I'd probably go with either Leno or Sanchez from Chelsea. I'm not exactly sure what I resort to. The clean sheet odds after Newcastle are best for Chelsea, but there's something about Chelsea which doesn't convince me. Uh,
Can I just interrupt you and say, do not get Sanchez. It's not worth it.
yeah, exactly. He's that's what I was going to come to as well. Because even though I want some sort of ownership from the Chelsea defense, I don't want to go there personally. So I think
Yeah.
realistically, Leno. I was looking at Saab, but he was injured as well, so I'm not exactly sure about his availability. But yeah, doubling up on the Wolves defense could be a potential option as well. Another thing that I've looked at, and I think we should be mentioning this in this video, is that I can go with, let's say, Pope and Share, and maybe upgrade someone like a Trippier to Trent. Now, the
Yes.
thing is that I'm not exactly sure about Trent's minutes this week. While I do think that he will start, I'm not entirely sure whether he plays, 60, 65 minutes. That's the only risk in my head. I don't think he will play 90 minutes even if he starts.
No, I
And
don't think he'll play 90 for sure, which is a good point
right,
because if you do expect Tottenham to score in that game, which I think most people would, I don't know if that, I don't know. It's tough.
not necessarily,
Sometimes
not
no, not
necessarily.
necessarily exactly. But I'm just thinking sometimes with a defender, it's actually a good thing if they play 60, 65. If you know they're going to get to 60, if they come off earlier, it's a good thing because they bank that clean sheet. However, if you think Tottenham are going to score and you're getting Trent in for more attacking returns, then you want him to play the whole game anyway. So I think it depends on how you sort of view that fixture. I agree with you, actually. That is, I mean, the bookies are saying it's good clean sheet odds, right? So it's a good fixture.
It's one which currently I'm not exactly sure about with his minutes. That's why I don't have him in his draft. But let's say if there was any sort of positive update before the deadline, anything that Sloth says, then I might reconsider this decision. Trend is also sort of playing in my thoughts. But yeah, more or less, I think my free hit team will be centered around these picks. I don't think I will go to left field. From Fulham, the Sessegnon I might potentially consider, but the risk there is that Wilson could start over him. I
Yeah.
want to speak a bit about differential, so I'm mentioning Sessegnon as one. I think any Fulham player is going to be a big differential because none of them have high ownerships. And I don't think all of them will be popular on the free hit as well because when you look at Leno, there are alternatives in his position. Similarly with Raul, there's Welbeck that people will go for, and with Sessegnon as well. Just because he's not exactly nailed, a lot of people might not go for him. So while the risk is there, the Fulham picks do come with high reward. I think Harvey Barnes could be a nice differential. I mentioned Cunha, Welbeck. I do think they will be, relatively good differentials. I don't think many people pick Flywood either against
No,
United.
I don't think so.
So yeah, I think overall, again, I think I did mention this could be a week where you could take on Mbemo. I think this could be a week where you can take on Chris Wood as well. I haven't personally considered him at all in my selection. I think there are four better forwards to own than him. So I don't think you should be going for, these high ownership picks if you're looking to make up some ground against the field. I think the only players that should be 100% locked in this team should be Salah and Isak.
Okay, interesting. Let's round off the team. I don't think it really matters, but just chuck some players in there, or I can do it for you on your bench, just so we can see what the team rating and predicted points is, or game week rating, I should say, because it's only one game week, of course.
I mean, you can do the honors. The bench.
Okay, I'll put Sanchez in there just for fun. As
Go on.
I do dislike him as a player. As a guy, he's a great guy, but goodness me, watching him as a player is tough. Do you see that sort of? It went a bit viral, that moment against Ipswich where, well, it was analysed on Sky Sports, for example, where the Chelsea fans were getting very angry with Sanchez and the team for just passing it out from the back and lost the ball and gave a good chance to, I think it was Kayuste. Did you see that? It was very toxic.
I did.
Yeah, I was in that stand and I was like, goodness me, this is I've not really experienced something like this before. It was, people were very, very frustrated to a level that I've not actually seen before at a Chelsea game with a goalkeeper and like a style of play. So that was, yeah, not great to see. But Sanchez, God, he is very, very poor with his feet for a keeper that is supposed to be good with his feet. Anyway, we'll put him in for banter. Defenders, I'll put Sessegnon on him because I want to hear your thoughts on him a little bit more. And then the rest doesn't really matter, does it? Let's just chuck in someone like Milenkovic or Nico Williams because I quite like him. And midfield, could be anyone. Let's do. Thing is, like, you do have triple ups on a lot of these players, which is good because obviously there are the fixtures to target, which is super strong, which I think makes this week fun because you don't have to go with, as in if everyone is going to have 3 Newcastle players, for example, and there are 4 or 5 good Newcastle players, then those players will be differentials, which is nice. And I haven't seen any other team really with double Newcastle defense, so that's a fun one. Let's put Welbeck in there. And then that is the team as it stands. So 66.4 predicted points, 95% game week rating. It's pretty strong, but there is, according to the data, room for improvement. Would you take 66 points if I were to do that right now?
I think that's a reasonable score. I think I would actually.
In any normal given week, you would take 66, obviously. I think getting over 60 is good.
Ideally.
But on a free hit?
I think ideally.
I don't know. It's tough.
I think ideally 70.
Yeah.
66 would be an okay week. But then again, you're right. On a free hit, you want a better week. So I think anything above 70 will make it a good free hit week, I think.
Okay. Interesting. It's a strong team. It is. But what I like about this week, and I know I've said this a few times, I'm thinking about my team, right? I don't think I'm going to have, well, I won't have Mbemo. I'm very confident of that. I don't think I'm going to have Cliver. I think there's a very good chance I won't have Palmer. I definitely won't have, well, I almost definitely won't have Welbeck. And then I won't have a double Newcastle defence. And I don't think I'll have Leno. So that's 6 differences already. And we're on free hit. So for people saying like, oh, it's boring, everyone's on the same team. I don't think it's going to be like that. Obviously, there are going to be optimal players in any given game week. Like, but that's the same all the time. I mean, people have had Salah the whole season. Ait Nouri is someone that you just sort of have to have. I think Newcastle defence, you have to have a Newcastle defender. Cunha and Isak, I think, pick themselves. Apart from that, though, there are a lot of decent options. Let's talk about some other potential options that you haven't included that I know you've thought about and you've mentioned. Sessegnon is the one. He's like the bandwagon pick this week, isn't he? That people are talking about. So, do you think there's a decent enough chance that he doesn't start or comes off before 60 minutes to not put him in your team? Because you've got Leno, so you must think the clean sheet options chances are decent, right?
Feature chances are decent. The appeal with with Sessegnon is that if he's playing as a winger against a team like Southampton, then of course, for a player of his price, then he can be a very potentially explosive differential. The thing is that while Marco Silva has appreciated that he's been in form and he sort of hinted that he could continue playing in this role. He also mentioned he still thinks that his best position is as the left back.
Okay.
So I'm not entirely sure whether he continues using him on the wing. That's the thing. And the worst part with his selection is that if he doesn't start, then he's going to 100% come off the bench, and
Yeah.
that's just something which makes the selection very, very tricky. And that's why I don't think I would probably have him on my team. But the upside is there. Maybe if we get the league before the deadline, I don't think we will, because in the first fixture Chelsea versus Everton. So yeah, it's probably something which I know I will consider, but I doubt that I go ahead with it.
That's fair enough. All right, I'm going to quickly go through a couple of other players that aren't in your team and I'm thinking about, and just see where you're standing on them. Let's start with goalkeepers. I think Sales has a good fixture, but you've got Mbermo. I think Kepa has quite a good fixture for sort of haul potential. If United take quite a few shots and have a decent amount of the ball but don't score, I quite like him. I've said that all week. And the last one I suppose that I'm seeing quite a lot of teams is Pope, because if people aren't too sure on a Newcastle defender, and more importantly, they think there might be better defenders out there, then Pope covers that Newcastle defence. So what do you think about those goalkeepers?
Yeah, I think I mentioned Pope. There's a chance that I might end up with him in the free hit. I think Kepa is fine, but I think there are better keepers in terms of clean sheet odds. When you look at Bournemouth this week, Bournemouth are not even in the top seven. Bournemouth are actually eighth. Bournemouth's clean sheet
Yeah.
odds are 33%.
But then that makes me think there's potential for a haul there, because United will have more shots, and Kepa got 11 points the other day, got 6 points this game week. They're in good form defensively.
Yeah, that could happen. And if you sort of nail it, then it's a selection that could come up. But I don't think I'll personally consider Kepa in my team, simply because the clean sheet odds for me are too low. I would rather look elsewhere when it comes to the goalkeepers, personally. Yeah.
Sure. Okay. In defence, I think the most notable omission, apart from Trent, who you've talked about, is Cucurella, who we haven't really mentioned. What do you think about him as a potential option?
I don't think he's bad. As mentioned earlier, having any sort of Chelsea defensive coverage could be nice. Chelsea 42% is good for a clean sheet. So Cucurella, I think there's a chance I might go Pope, Cucurella, Trippier, and Ait-Nouri as my defense. There's a good chance. So yeah, I've sort of forgotten. I didn't mention about Cucurella in the video, but yeah, he's an option I really like.
And then, if you were to choose between Murphy and Barnes, how would you choose one of them?
Now, this is tricky. I think I would go with Barnes. I'll tell you why. I just think when I look at both of them play, I think Barnes is more selfish and he's more of a. I think because he can play on both wings, and because recently you've seen that Murphy has been subbed off for Gordon, I think Barnes is slightly better for minutes. He can play on both wings, and I think he's slightly more direct. So I think I would go with Barnes. And again, I think Barnes is the more differential by far. So why not just take the differential points and offer? I think this is a week where you can take Murphy on. I don't think Murphy will be in my team. I can say that for sure.
Okay, interesting. I like that. I'm very tempted by Barnes as well. And then finally, you mentioned Wood, not going there, which I kind of agree with. I don't know. I don't think this is the week to go for Wood personally. I think it's a good fixture, but
being a traitor this way, you're just being a traitor.
I know, but it's boring.
So well this season.
It's boring. Cunha and Isak are in, which leaves one spot. I like the Welbeck pick. I don't think I'd go there myself. I was looking at Strand Larsen as one, just to really hammer home the Leicester defense that have been poor, very, very poor. They've won 5 in a row or something. Double up on the Wolves attack. Is that too much exposure?
I don't think so. I think it's a very realistic strategy that you can opt for. I don't think it's a bad strategy at all.
I mean, he's got significantly more predicted points than Welbeck, as does Evan Nielsen. So out of those two, I think it's interesting. Okay, you've got him, don't you, in your actual team?
I have in my actual team. So I was going to say, do you think Strand Larsen's better than Evan Nielsen? Evan Nielsen could do well. I mean, for similar reasons to Kluivert, right? I don't want to double up on the Bournemouth attack. That's why I'm not considering Evan Nielsen from my own team. And I genuinely think that Welbeck and Raul are better options than Evan Nielsen this week. So yeah, that's just the way I feel. I hope Muniz is out before the deadline because Raul would be a very nice differential at
Mm.
home. Sorry, away to Southampton. But I just get the feeling that we'll get news that Muniz is fit, and I might actually end up with no Fulham in my team, which won't exactly feel ideal.
I really want to go for Sessegnon. He's been in my drafts, but I don't know if it's a risk worth taking when there are I think the defensive options from an attacking standpoint are very strong this week. Like if you think of Aït-Nouri, Trent, Cucurella, and then your Newcastle defender, there's a lot of potential for attacking returns there and the clean sheet. So it's the question of, is it worth the risk on Sessegnon? I know you mentioned Price, but Price isn't really that relevant this week. So it's like, I don't know. I don't know. And those comments that you've mentioned from Marco Silva are a little bit off-putting. But there we go, mate. I think we've covered the majority of things there. 95% gaming rating, 66.4 predicted points. It's a very strong team. Guys, as I said in the intro, get in the comments down below. Tell us players that we've potentially missed. Maybe there are other differentials that you're thinking about. And importantly, click the link in the description, top line. Go and build your own free hit team. Also, if you sign up to Fantasy Football Hub, you can have a look at the best AI free hit team. So that's a team that is built purely looking at these predicted points and fitting everything together and building the team that has that 100% gaming rating. If you want to see that, link down below, sign up to the site. Bakar, thank you very much as always. It's been a great one.
Sure.
And interestingly,
Thank you.
tomorrow, Bakar is going to be back on the channel and we're going to be talking about Wildcard 34. So for those of you that are on a wildcard, which probably aren't that many of you watching right now, but if you are, for whatever reason, still watching and you're on a Wildcard 34, watch out for tomorrow's video. We will catch you then.